The Lions Automobilia Foundation Museum is way more than a museum. It's an experience.
No, not every day you find a museum like this around, and especially to do with Lions drag strip.
Every time I walk in the door, I'll see something new and I go, oh, that's new. And they go, no, that's been here. There's so much to see here.
I think they are actually in shock. They have no idea that this exists. And they kind of walk in the door and they don't know what to expect.
Kind of interesting. You kind of come in and then you turn another corner and another corner, and you don't realize how large this place actually is.
I think it's very important to preserve this. It's history, and we don't want to lose our history.
I think I'm having a love affair with this museum. I know I am.
Wow, it's an enthusiastic crowd. Thank you. When embarrassed and you don't know what to do, take the full karate bow. I learned that from my son when he was 5. My name is Jack Beckman, and last year, the second annual Lions Automobilia Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, I fixed elevators on Thursday, took Friday off, drove out to Pomona, and hung out and watched my friends race. Tomorrow, I get to put on a helmet and fire suit, strap in John Force's Pete Camaro, and go down the drag strip. And there's some good, go fast conditions out there right now. If we're going to kick off a motorsports event, we need to do it with the national anthem. If you're able to, please rise. Gentlemen, take your caps off. They wanted me to sing that. Don't know how much red wine's available, but that's not happening tonight. If you're going to go to a motorsports event, Sunday at Pomona, you're going to hear an invocation. Is Russell in the house? Mr. Hamilton, are you close by? For tonight's invocation, Mr. Russell Hamilton.
Well, thank you for letting me be here with you guys tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather here today with our hearts full of gratitude and joy as we celebrate the accomplishments and contributions of those being honored in this induction. We thank you for their unique gifts, their talents that you have given each of them, their dedication and their perseverance. Lord, we ask you for your presence in this gathering. May it fill us with respect, celebration, camaraderie, as we pray, as we induct these inductees and their families that are here today. Please bless our time together and let it remind us of the importance of passion, teamwork, strength, and community that guides our words, our hearts, as we recognize these remarkable individuals for their achievements. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Could you just imagine on the last beat of the national anthem, go back to, what was it, December 3rd, 1972? Am I right, Carl? Everybody says, but Jack, the poster says December 2nd. It ran late, didn't it? And on the last beat of the national anthem, Jeb Allen and Carl Olson pushing up the return road to light those cars off for the last pass down lines. That'd be pretty good memories. I mentioned to you guys, this is the third annual Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. There's been 2 before. On the back wall, highlit on both sides, are all 3 years, including this year's inductees. I think I know who is in the house from the prior year's classes. Steve, do I have to make that announcement? Yeah. Turn the cell phones on silent and keep the chatter to a minimum, right? You'd think it was a 4th grade class here. When I announce the prior inductees, if you would please stand up, be acknowledged. We'd like to celebrate you guys. I know I saw Linda Vaughn coming in tonight. Where is Linda? Where is the First Lady? You may stay standing, Linda. You may stay standing. Now, before Carl Olson and Jeb Allen ran in the final round, they ran the final round of funny cars. And the late, great Tom McEwen beat the great, great Don the Snake Perdone. Don, you want to stand up? I don't know that this gentleman would have a tally. I'm guessing his engines took home a lot of trophies at Lions. Ed Pink, are you in the house? Looks pretty good for 72 years old, doesn't he? Robert Bones Baylog. Where are you, Bones? AA gas superstar. And I had the honor of inducting Bones into the Garlits Hall of Fame the day the world fell apart, back in 2020. I guess I was asking a lot of you guys, some of the octogenarians, to stand up that long, but there's a 103-year-old man I think is in the room tonight. Is Iski here? Ed Iskandarian. Ed does not have to turn his cell phone off. The rest of you, turn your cell phones off. Somebody is going to forget, trust me. Those are your prior inductees. We have got a wonderful group of inductees tonight. In fact, speaking with Lana Chrisman, whose father will be one of those, we would have had a lot more people in the room, but we scheduled this opposite the Baja 1000, and you'll understand once we go through the inductees why that was a huge group of people that we just weren't going to be able to get in here tonight. We are at Lions Automobilia. It is a shrine to drag racing at, Carl, is it a fair statement to say the greatest drag strip in the history of the world? And I asked Carl this, because the first drag race I ever went to was Orange County 73. I missed Lions entirely. And I asked him, what was it about Lions that was so cool? I said, was it the people, was it the time, was it the cars, was it the location? He said, yes, it was all of that. It was just, everything was right at the right place, at the right time, with the right people, with the right cars, with the right management. It just worked. And I think this is the proof. Rick Lorenzen has built this shrine and an amazing car museum. I would like to bring up Rick's daughter, the chairperson of this incredible place, Tammy Lorenzen Fanslow. Where are you, Tammy?
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here for our, as Jack mentioned, our 3rd annual Legends of Lions. Please bear with me while I stumble through this. I'm going to have some moments, but I'm saddened that our founder and my father, Rick Lorenzen, is not here with us, but I know he is watching over us and is very happy that we are continuing his big vision and legacy. Events in the museum have been increasing, whether they are in the dining area, where the diner is, the Lions Drag Strip room, we can also have events there, and then also here in this room that we call the Lions Event Center, or LEC for short. This room is an example of how we continue to expand. These events range from the car culture events to corporate functions to our education programs. Through either word of mouth or our wonderful supporters and sponsors, the attendance at this museum has increased, which is leading us to being open to the public more frequently. I would like to recognize our wonderful board of directors for all their support and collaboration, so please stand when I call your name. Dave Merrick, Carl Olson, Tom Elliott, Mark Platt. I would also like to recognize and thank our Executive Director, Lana Chrisman, for all her support and keeping us on our toes. Thank you. As some of you may remember, Long Beach was one of the founding clubs of the Lions Drag Strip. Therefore, Rick wanted to bring back the Automotive Lions Club to Long Beach. He worked really hard on this vision, and I'm happy to announce the Long Beach West Lions Club. It is a specialty club, the only one that is focused on automotive. Our partnership with the Long Beach West Lions Club gives us the opportunity to expand within the community. If you're interested in being a member of this club, we have Manny Sanchez. Please stand, Manny. Vice President of the Long Beach West Lions Club. He's here to assist if you'd like to become a member. Thank you. Thank you, Manny. I'd also like to give a big shout out and thank you to all of our volunteers. They have been very instrumental with all of our events. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And we have a video.
You know, in order for a place like this museum to exist, there has to be people that are giving time.
I think the general public doesn't quite know what they're in for when they come to a museum. Then we're kind of the accent piece that helps them understand a little bit more about the history of the cars and what's gone on in the museum.
We have people from all over the country, all over the world, really, that come. I mean, some weekends are totally international.
The volunteers all come from a different backgrounds, and they have their experience that they can give to the people that come through the door, and it's just a really great experience.
All the volunteers are so welcoming. They're just really great to work with.
If this is what you love, giving something back, your time, that's, you know, it is truly the reward for doing it.
Thank you again to our volunteers. I'm also happy to report that our education program is continuously expanding as well. We are excited about how far we've come in our education programs and are working with many people and organizations to continue that growth. At this time, I would like to call up Dean Case with SAE to the stage.
The Foundation's mission is to honor and preserve motorsports in Southern California for the next generation. So many of our programs are youth-oriented.
They're working with entry-level technician-type training, nut and bolt stuff, you know, grassroots.
It's important for the next generation to know where we started from and appreciate the development and all the hard work and innovation that made the cars that we drive today are because of all of that innovation going back 30, 40, 50 years. Having school field trips coming in from 6th and 7th, 8th graders, hearing the stories and the history of car culture in SoCal. We're also developing workshops so we could have smaller groups come in and be able to experience working on an engine or working on a transmission with their hands and learning about the car.
Society of Automotive Engineers, that's another great thing. You still need an automotive skill set if you're going to be an automotive engineer.
It's a way to connect with a younger audience, which will be a pipeline to our great schools. And let's face it, a lot of the kids, let's say in the young teenager stage, would much rather listen to an 18 or 20-year-old talking about the race car they're designing at university than listen to me. SAE has this program called AWIM, A World in Motion. And they've got these amazing educational programs, turnkey, kind of a project in a box from SAE International that's geared specifically, developed by educational professionals for the K through 12 world.
People have a hard focus on their academics and to really hammer in what they learn in school. However, it really doesn't apply unless you apply those academics hands-on. So if that being building Legos or getting your hands on a hammer or nail. Expose yourself to putting what you learned in the classroom to, say, a workshop.
You want to inspire the kids at 3rd or 4th grade that math and science are fun.
When they step in, it may seem a bit daunting because there's already been so much progress throughout the years. However, I feel like the youth really forgets that they are what's going to build the future.
So I think everyone pretty much knows what SAE is. We always joke that we're the oil can people, where it says SAE 20W50, that's us. Southern California is the 2nd largest concentration of automotive engineers in the world. And traditionally, we've had both ground transportation, aerospace, and fuels and lubes, but increasingly, we now have electrification and autonomy. And we've got some amazing history here. And on a personal level, I love tonight from the standpoint, my family tradition was Turkey Night Grand Prix at Ascot. And we got our stones at Parnelli Jones, going for the race car show every year there. And we had Dan Gurney as a guest speaker at an SAE meeting. Dan was an SAE member for over 30 years. He may not have been a degreed engineer, but he was certainly an engineer. So we're really thrilled to be involved with the Lions program. SAE has a stronghold on the collegiate level. We have 18 student chapters in Southern California. If anyone out here is looking to hire entry-level automotive professionals, please talk to me afterwards. I've got a thick stack of resumes available. But now, we were always weak on the K through 12 program. SAE really didn't have a mechanism to do it until I met Lana here at the Lions Museum, and their program, what they're trying to do, dovetails perfectly. So it gives us a footprint, and it also gives us a way to get the collegiate students a way to be involved. I always ask them if they have mentors, and very few of them do. And I said, well, come volunteer at Lions. There's an amazing group of volunteers that'd be wonderful mentors, because they're pretty much have been there, done that type of group. And everyone needs a mentor, and they can also be a mentor to people in the K through 12 world. When I give careers talk, I use Parnelli Jones as an example of not only a great race driver, but a great business person. And I think it was partly due to he had mentors in J.C. Agajanian and Val Militich. And, that's what we're trying to connect with. But so for SAE SoCal, it's a privilege to be partnered with Lions in helping them meet their goals. And I think it extends our reach. So this is just the perfect venue. And I can't say enough about the volunteers here. Every time I talk to a volunteer, I learn something. So it's just a great opportunity for us, and I thank you for being a part of this tonight. Thank you.
Our new room that we're building and doing the murals in, that's been so well accepted, is going to be an opportunity for groups, people to have celebrations and events in there. It'll hold a lot of people, probably 250 people.
So the event center is designed to bring people in to have events, because we want to share the experience with everybody, showcase what we have, the cars, the murals, but to bring people in, and then they have events. Organizations bring in people from their industry to have an event, and it just exposes more people to it.
And it's our way of giving back to the community and giving them space to enjoy the scenery and the experience of what it was like back then.
Whether it's a small event, a large event, we can do different ones. We can do in the diner a smaller event, but the event center itself, we can hold up to 300 people. So it's just going to bring people, and a lot of people are looking for a nice, different venue to have an event besides the typical, the white walls and stuff. And definitely our event center has some excitement to it that will keep people talking while they're at the event. The event center that we have is state-of-the-art sound system. We have TVs that will show clear pictures, so people with tables in there, because it seats 300 people in the back will be able to see clearly what's happening at the podium in the front. But we also have the opportunity for the organization that's wanting to do an event here to have it in a different setting if they don't want the podium. If they want to walk around between tables or however they want to set it up, we have the ability to do it because we have the space. Some organizations like to mix it up a little bit, whether it's a holiday party, whether they're bringing their staff here for a lunch or something, or just showcasing themselves to their customers.
We've got every option available for them.
It's what we really are going to be very proud of and hope people will enjoy.
I wasn't really prepared to see Rick talking right now. It's a little bit earlier than I was prepared for, and that's a tough one, but it's a tough one because he meant so much to so many people. Any people here for the first time at Lyons Automobilia? It's an incredible place, isn't it? It's mind-blowing. And this is a shrine not just to drag racing, but motorsports in Southern California. It's a thank you to all the people that have participated and been part of, whether you were in the water, on the dirt, or on the asphalt. There is an amazing amount of stuff in the Lions room and the silent auction. Just some really cool things. And now that you guys have an idea of what this is, as the night progresses, I hope you get a little better understanding of the how and the why, the education portion of it, what they're trying to accomplish by having this amazing museum and using it as a working tool for the future of the industry here. So all the money raised from the silent auction will go towards that. So I would heavily encourage you guys. We're going to take a break in a couple of minutes for dinner, and it'll be an hour long. So enjoy your meal and converse for a while, but take a look out there and maybe you can walk home with something pretty cool tonight. So the master of the audio visual, Dimitri, has informed me, and I hope I got this right, that we're about to see a video about Rick.
The museum is more than a museum, and it depicts an era that we grew up in. I'm just really reliving my youth.
He had such a vision and the tenacity to make that vision happen, become a reality. It's just amazing.
If he saw value in something and he saw a potential, Rick had the ability to look into the future.
There was nothing fancy, just cars with no paint, no wheels, engines here, parts there. It was just a mess.
Rick was not afraid of hard work.
I remember walking through the warehouse and I would see a car part, a car hood or something like that. And I remember asking him, what do you plan on doing with all of this? And he's like, one day, this is gonna be cars. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. And he's like, you watch. Well, he proved his vision right. He made it happen. That's his tenacity, and it's contagious.
It seemed like the wheels were always turning in his head, that what can I do to make it better, and always thinking ahead and whatnot.
Rick is everywhere in this. It really does show his passion for automobiles. When we were little kids, when we used to take travels across the United States, we had to stop at every junkyard for old license plate frames, anything that had to do with cars. We couldn't go by a junkyard without going into it and checking them out.
But that was his passion, and he loved the logistics. He loved moving freight around. He loved having his own company, and he loved that he could make it grow. But as the company grew, he grew. The people that he supported grew with it.
Rick had a vision for this company, and he had, my dad said he had the guts to carry it out.
Rick was somebody who he had a lot of friends, he was a good salesman. He talked to a lot of people, made a lot of friends, well respected in the community.
To him, everybody was family. Whether it didn't matter what department you worked in or what you did. For him, everybody was family. Especially, he had a lot of close relationships with the guys working on the floor or the yard or stuff like that. And those are the ones that, he would relate to the most.
There was a lot of family pride from my parents. with what Rick had accomplished. So he was quite a remarkable man.
As a family, we all worked together, did what it took to keep the operation going. And he was just amazing. I've never seen a man that had so much passion for things in his life that, somebody on the street, he'd give him $1. We'd be in the car. We have to make a left here. There'd be a homeless person there. He would give him what he had in his wallet. He was just that given.
He's very involved with Honoring Our Fallen, which services the families of men and women who have died during action, and he just felt such a calling on that. He was very involved with the Ronald McDonald House of Long Beach as well. He was a Few Good Men class of 2016, and of course with the Boys and Girls Club of Long Beach and Carson. He's been actively involved in that too, just again, because part of the legacy that he leaves with us to continue on is the youth engagement programs.
Through being a philanthropist, an entrepreneur, he was blessed so much that he wanted to give back to others so they could be blessed also.
I think Rick's desire to keep it going, even past his lifetime, was when he turned it into a non-profit foundation.
He liked creating things that other people could enjoy because it made him proud and it made him joyful when he could bring joy to somebody else's life.
Definitely want to continue the legacy that he has started, just to keep that drive going, and it's what made him so happy, and that's what I want to continue, is just to make him happy, because this was what he truly wanted to do, and the vision, just kind of continuing his vision, and what more can we do? There's a lot of avenues that we can continue with the foundation and getting more involved in different areas, especially with the youth education, getting that more up and going. We're doing a great job so far, but there's so much more we can do, and just helping him see that legacy continue.
I stood right here hosting the celebration of life for Rick. I love Rick and I miss Rick. And if you ever met Rick, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you didn't meet Rick, I love what Tammy said up there about the legacy. He gave you this. And you showing up tonight is the thank you for him. And I know he's happy. This is why this building was put here. And we can do some things, and we can affect some people, and we can make changes for positive. And it is about Rick's legacy, and he's still with us because of that. Enjoy your dinners. Go look at the silent auction items. We'll get back up here in an hour, and we are going to induct some folks into the Lions Hall of Fame. It's going to be a great night.
We're going to truly preserve and honor motorsports and car culture in California. We have to tell its story.
The museum is more than a museum, and it depicts an era that we grew up in.
Because when you walk in, you're walking into just a different time.
I'm just really reliving my youth.
They're walking through his story.
That excitement, just something I don't want to forget. All these things mean something to me.
You see his enthusiasm for the automobile, for the car culture.
And that's the feeling when you walk in. It's kind of like, wow.
I guess that means I'm going back to work. I hope you guys all enjoyed your dinner. I don't feel like a rock star because I can sing. I feel like one because I can't see anything but the spotlights out there. Welcome back to Lions 2024 edition of their Hall of Fame inductions. I mentioned some of the prior recipients who are in the room tonight as I was walking around rubbing shoulders with some of my friends and some of the icons and some of the legends. Just a lot of horsepower in the room. A lot of different forms of motorsports, but people who have made an impact on things. If you guys didn't know Rick Lorenzen, I'm hoping that before you leave tonight, you'll have a little better idea of who he was and what he meant to the sport and what motorsports meant to Rick. There's a gentleman that did a tribute video for him, and I think a lot of times you can measure the worth of somebody's character and accomplishments by the other icons that speak highly of them. If I can get Bruce Meyer just to stand up just for a second and hold your hand up there, Bruce. Okay, you can rest your legs. We won't do any jogging later. It's a fair statement to say that the Peterson Automotive Museum would not exist if it was not for Bruce Meyer. He's had an enormous impact on the world of automobiles and has given us so many things in Southern California for us gearheads and car geeks. Bruce, thank you very much. And we're going to roll a little tribute video that Bruce has done for our friend Rick.
I put Rick Lorenzen right up there with everybody who's being honored tonight. Because here's another humble man, nice, kind, and welcoming to everybody. And built this museum to share his passion. This is obviously not a profit center for him, but a center of his passion and his wanting to give back. And I don't think there's a man that I can think of that was any more humble, sweet to everybody, and gave better hugs than Rick Lorenzen.
Short and sweet. Well played, brother. Well played.
20 years ago, Rick, aka my dad, had a 2 to 3 car collection in a 440 square foot room just down the street on Dominguez. Over the years, that collection has grown to 120 plus cars and evolved into the Lions Automobilia Foundation and Museum, a 501c3 nonprofit museum. Over 20 years, Rick's vision was to protect and preserve the heritage of the the Lions drag strip and Southern California motorsports culture. Rick had a vision, ability, and work ethic to make the Lions Automobilia Foundation a reality. In thinking about how this museum was founded, the Lions Automobilia Foundation Board of Directors wanted to acknowledge and honor other individuals who have made exceptional contributions to the preservation of the automotive culture. In that context, the Foundation Board of Directors has created a Founders Award to honor an individual or company that has gone the extra mile to preserve and protect our great automotive history. So tonight, I am proud to announce the first Founders Award recipient, Bruce Meyer.
By the way, Bruce had zero idea
that
he was going to be presented this award. You're handling this with aplomb, my friend.
So Bruce Meyer was chosen as our first recipient of this award because he embodies so many of the same characteristics as my dad. He is passionate about cars, hot rods in particular. Bruce is friendly with everyone he encounters and always has a smile on his face. As he mentioned, hugs, he gives hugs just like my dad did, and is known to be a car guy, which describes my dad as well. Yeah, of course. Thank you. And,
no, Bruce, it doesn't just come with a hug.
Yes. It also comes with
the first recipient of the Rick Lorenzen Founders Award. Bruce, it also comes with a speech.
No, Bruce is speechless. I had no idea, not a clue. This is so great. This couldn't be a Willie's, could it? Of course. No, I'm sitting with the snake, and we're talking about passion and preserving history, and Rick just is symbolic of everything we love about this hobby. Everything he did was for giving back. He never wanted anything in exchange. He was always there. He would be so proud of this turnout tonight, knowing that everybody was here celebrating our favorite hobby and passion of the automobile. So I am deeply touched. I hope everybody here has been to the Peterson or has the opportunity to go. We put a lot of energy into that. It's our 30th year, and it's not easy to run a museum, and it takes a lot of help. And in the back of the room, you have your docents who make it all work, and they do it out of love. And everybody here is here out of love. God bless you all. Thank you so much. God bless America.
That's fantastic. He had no idea that he was going to leave with that really cool 41 Willys trophy. It is Periwinkle, Rick's favorite car. And like, how do you pick a favorite car here? I was telling Tammy, talking with Steve Gibbs and Graham Light earlier, and I said, just think if Tammy said, listen, the fire marshal came in, we got to get rid of 3 cars. You guys all, you get to pick one. Just pick one. I told Steve and Graham, I said, it'd take me 5 hours to walk through here because, like, how would there's 35 ones that I would pick here just because they're so awesome and significant. Her dad kind of had a thing for Willys, in case you guys can't tell, and there's a ton more that haven't been finished. Dimitri, are we ready to get started with the reason we showed up here tonight? The 2024 Lions Automobilia Hall of Fame induction ceremony. What a class of people and the things that they've done in the industry. If you go in the Indianapolis area, because they got a pretty big 2.5-mile track there, there's a niche of racers that live there that they just exude IndyCar. If you go down to Charlotte, it's a similar deal. There's a lot of NASCAR racers, and they've got their own culture there. But before there was Indy, before there was Charlotte, even before there was a World War II, there was Southern California. And the car culture here was second to none. It started on the dry lakes. They took it to the wet lakes. They took it to abandoned airfields after the war. They started organizing drag racing events. They had board track cars. They have airplanes. They have motorcycles. They have off-road cars, stadium cars, motorcycles. It's not that that stuff doesn't exist outside of Southern California. It's that it's just been compressed into Southern California. And when I'm going to do an event like this, the first thing I do is I call Bob Fry. I'm like, you need to save my ass. I need some good information on this. And he'll send me a sheet of stuff, and I'm like, that's awesome, that's awesome, that's awesome. Then you start researching and looking at things, and you just go down this rabbit hole, because the list of people that are getting inducted this year is, where do you want to stop? So I think the fact is I can keep some of the speaking to a minimum, because it's pretty obvious what their impact was on motorsports in general. What I thought was really cool was the connective tissue that was connecting a lot of the different inductees tonight there. Carroll Shelby, I don't know if you guys know, he had a movie made about him, Ford versus Ferrari, which was really, really cool. Is JC Jr. out here right now? Chris, JC, where are you guys? The Agajanian brothers? Okay, yeah. I know you guys didn't want to be outdone. What was it, 1974? You guys were in Gone in 60 Seconds? That little movie, yeah. So you guys had your 15 minutes of fame and movie stars. Parnelli was in that movie. Dan Gurney started the All-American Racers Association in 1964. Do you know who helped him found that organization? Carroll Shelby. When you start looking at the connective tissue between all these different people, our first recipient, J.C. Agajanian. And as a kid growing up in Southern California, there was, well, my first drag race was 1973, so there was Orange County International Raceway. There was Saugus Speedway, spent a lot of weekends there, and there was Ascot. And it was 3 radically different forms of racing, and I loved every one of them. And what JC gave us out there was amazing. And what JC's contribution was to motorsports, well, again, It's highly significant. But while I was going and researching some of this stuff, I stumbled on a YouTube video. Does anybody know JC didn't make his money in motorsports? Do you know what he did for a living? He's a garbage man. Awesome thing to do. I don't know if it's something about Iski made camshafts, but Agajanian and Masmanian decided they're going to make their money hauling garbage away, and it worked out great. But there's a video from Indy from 1963, and it's pretty cool. It's a guy interviewing JC Agajanian with his famous cowboy hat on, and he says, yeah, I got me a good driver out here. I think he's going to do good, and he bangs on the side of the trash truck, and out comes Parnelli Jones to do the interview. And I thought that was just awesome. Accepting on behalf of JC tonight are going to be his kids, Chris and JC Jr. If you guys want to start walking up right now, we're getting ready to roll a video of your pops there. But you know, JC owned several cars that won the Indy 500. The engine in one of those cars was built by another one of tonight's inductees, Bill Stroppe. It's really cool when you look at these people that are going on that wall tonight. And they came from different states. They concentrated in Southern California, and they changed the face of motorsports. So let's roll video on tonight's first inductee, JC Agajanian.
Agajanian name is a household name in Southern California. I grew up at Ascot, figure eights, flat track, TT special, stock cars, jalopies. That was where you went to enjoy the hobby. And the Agajanians were the family that promoted it all.
We're very proud of our father, JC Agajanian, and what he's brought to Southern California. And of course, he put on a lot of national championship events across the country. But he did bring national championship events to Southern California and promoted national motorcycle races and midget races and even IndyCar races and sprint cars and champ cars.
Ascot was the epicenter. And Jay Agajanian used to go on the radio and say,
to come out to Ascot in Gardena, where the harbor, the San Diego, and the 91 freeways explode. And then everyone would grab their chest and go, who is that on the radio?
You know, the Agajanians just had a way of promoting, and I think of them as promoters.
My grandfather had a very kind of outlandish approach to motorsports. I mean, not only would he put on the best races that drew the best drivers, but before those races, he was putting on demolition derbies with all brand new luxury cars. So he was doing things that I think made people, you know, stand up and take notice. Ascot was built in 1957, and our father used to put on some of the big races there and pack the place.
Aggie always had the top equipment. He had the best cars, he had the best mechanics. He was always a fast car owner. So when Aggie had a race way out here on the West Coast, they'd be happy to come out and run his race because they wanted to endear themselves to Aggie and they wanted to put their butts in those fast race cars.
Yeah, and they did, and a lot of them did.
Yeah.
Number 98, to me, resonates the Agajanians. They won with 98 in 52.
Our father entered a car in the Indianapolis 500 in 1948 and entered one every year till the year that he died in 1984. He entered more cars in the Indianapolis 500 than any other man. I don't know if they've caught up with him. JC Agajanian was a large figure in, I think, the early days of American motorsports, really kind of setting the tone for how motorsports was promoted and shared and distributed across America and then globally.
He had a cowboy hat, even though he was Armenian. He had a cowboy hat, and that was his trademark.
I think that family's always been an important part of motorsports. It's a passion that's passed down. I'm lucky I'm third generation. I was able to grow up going to a racetrack and fall in love with it.
But I think of them as somebody that really knew how to, you know, bring enjoyment for the spectators.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Chris Agajanian. This is my brother JC.
Hi everyone. Oh, I'll back off the throttle there a bit.
And it's quite an honor to be here for sure. Hi, Bruce Meyer. How are you doing?
Bruce is our guy. Brucey, we love you, man. The Ags love you.
But anyway, I love this guy, but our older brother, we love that guy too. His name's Kerry Agajanian, and you probably know when you guys have signed, I'm not sure if you know this, but when you've signed a liability release form, the person that wrote it was our brother Kerry. And a while ago, back when Clay Regazzoni was racing in Long Beach, Jim McCallion, and it got pretty litigious back then. Years after that, insurance companies started dropping like flies, and they weren't going to insure racing any longer, and we were going to lose racing. It just got very close to maybe the last insurance company, which was, I think, K&K, and they got together with our brother Kerry, and Kerry went and talked to judges and different people, and he ended up, keeping that going. So insurance companies, and they put a limit on it, and that's why racing has continued to flourish. But we're very proud of Kerry. He's managed guys. He's written Jeff Gordon's contract, and he's managed Tony Stewart and Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, and they had a story on him once that said he was the most powerful guy in racing that no one knew.
Behind the scenes.
He had 25 guys in scale. But anyway, okay, so we're supposed to talk about our dad, and we love our dad. He's he was a phenomenal dad, good man, good Christian man. And, what can you say in a couple of minutes about a guy like that? We have pictures of him when he was 19 years old, and he was flagging at the Coliseum. The place was packed. There's midgets racing around without any catch fences. Everyone was wearing fedoras and suits, and he was out there. I've got programs in 1939 where he's putting on championship races. And
Chris, I'm sorry. Could we clarify, in this day and age, we don't want to hurt any feelings. When he says midgets, it wasn't little folks running around. It was small cars.
It wasn't Billy Barty?
No.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. That's an old name. I don't know how many of us.
Races are not fun.
It's not dwarf races. Okay. So anyway, there were championship races anyway. And we do have a big midget race coming up at Thanksgiving Grand Prix at Ventura. But anyway, so he had promoted races. We've got programs back to 1948 when he put on hot rod races, and he put on motorcycle races and stock car races, and they called them big car races. He changed the name to sprint cars at that time because those were called big cars, but how do you get any bigger than a big car? So they had changed that. But I remember him telling me that we used to cut off the fenders on our cars, and we'd call them hot rods. So, I mean, he's gone back so far, and like Bruce Meyer said, we won in 52. Well, I think he was 35 years old, and he was on the pole. His car was on the pole, and then by 37 years old, he had won the Indianapolis 500.
But I know how it started.
Anyway, I'll let my brother Jay explain.
Thank you, Chris. Chris is really a great speaker, and I'm happy to be able to share with you just a quick little deal. It won't take too long. JC was very much involved in racing, obviously, and he was a young guy. He was 14, 15, maybe 16 at the most, Chris, and he had a jalopy that he was working on in the garage, and his father, J.T. Agajanian, walked by and looked at that car that was stripped down, fenders off, and came out, and he told my dad, "Hey, come here." "Yeah, Dad, what's up?" "There's this broken down car in the garage. You know anything about it?" "Yeah, Dad, it's a jalopy. I'm going to be a race driver. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to race that, Dad." And my grandfather thought about it for a second. He says, "A race driver? Well, if you're going to be a race driver, then you have a couple of things you need to do. 3 things exactly. You need to, first of all, go into your room and pack your bags. Number 2, you need to go into your mother's room and kiss her goodbye. And as you're leaving this home, I want you to change your name." Now, all the other stuff was one thing, but in an Agajanian family, in an Armenian family, you change your name. Your cousins won't even say hi to you if you don't have your name anymore. So he said, "Okay, wait, Dad, can we do anything about this? And what can we do?" And JC said, if you promise me that you'll never drive that car, but you could put someone in it to race it, you could work on it. My grandfather thought it was great that he was working on the car, learning about engines. He'll have that all his life. So he said, get someone else to drive that, and it's okay with me. He kept his word to his dad. I think he snuck out a couple of times and raced. Huh? Chris? No, he didn't. Yes, he did that one. But anyway, he listened to his father. He didn't race, and the rest of his career went, because he was really a racer at heart and knew about racing, he'd pick special drivers and put them in the best equipment out there, and that was how Aggie did it.
Yay, Parnelli Jones.
Yeah, Parnelli was chosen as a very young guy. And okay, let's give Parnelli a hand. I agree. So that's how Aggie got into racing, and that's how it continued. I think we're good.
I think you guys are ready for Vegas. This act is well polished and ready to go. For J.C. Agajanian, Jay and Chris, well earned. Your father meant a whole lot to a whole lot of people. So as you're going through the list here and you're getting ready to MC, it's like, ooh, I can't wait to get to that one. Ooh, I can't wait to get that one. And then I have to remember it's a Hall of Fame. There's no slouches getting in tonight. Everybody here did something momentous over and over and over again. Our next inductee, Carroll Shelby. And it's cool because I'm 58, but I'm a fan of motorsports, and I love this. And I was asked years ago by a reporter, what's your greatest accomplishment in racing? And I knew what they meant. Did you win this race? Did you set that national record? Did you beat that person? But that wasn't my greatest accomplishment. I said, my greatest accomplishment is walking into a room full of the legends and icons that when I was a little kid, they were 8 feet tall, and they even know my name. Don Perdone. Donnie Hampton's here. I'm a big Steve Chrisman fan. Mike Chrisman's here, Art's son. To be in a room with the people that have done so much for motorsports, and to be one of you guys, it's mighty cool. To have been in a room with Carroll Shelby. Who here has been in a room and listened to or had a conversation with Carroll Shelby? It's almost life-changing. Like that guy, I think Matt Damon did a great job portraying Carroll in the movie, and sometimes they just get that radically wrong. Ken Miles was not that handsome in real life, I'm going to tell you, but the man could drive. But Carroll Shelby just lit up a room. Well into his late 80s, his recollection of events, his ability to put you there and tell a story in a way that wasn't patting his back, but you recognized it was enormous at the time. And I just enjoyed being a fly on the wall. I could do this without glasses a couple years ago. It was way easier. Shelby was a driver, and a damn good driver, like good enough to win Le Mans in 1959. He was that good. I don't know how many of the stories you believe. If it's on Wikipedia, is it true? But fact checking it seemed like during that event, he drove quite a bit with a nitroglycerin pill in his mouth. He just wasn't sure his heart was going to make it through the whole race. And shortly after that, health issues forced him out of the cockpit. He wasn't going to drive. But that might have been one of the best things that ever happened in motorsports, because him getting out of the cockpit focused his attention on doing other things, and man, did he do a lot of other things exceptionally well. So accepting, and you got to forgive me on this, it's small writing and it's getting harder through the night here, but accepting on behalf of Carroll's going to be Tracy Smith. Tracy, if you could start heading up here. And Carroll's got a lot of family in the area. And Lana and I were talking. I said, who's going to come out for the various inductees and accept? She said, you can't believe what the schedule's like for the Shelby family. They're everywhere all the time. So we're very fortunate Tracy was able to come out here right now. But I talked about connective tissue. Shelby had a flathead car that he ran down the drag strip in 1952. There's not a lot of motorsports participants who didn't drag race at one time or another. It was cheap, it was easily accessible back in the day, and it was a hell of a lot of fun, and there wasn't many rules there. Anyway, so we're gonna roll video on one of the biggest personalities and one of the people that accomplished the absolute most in their career and lived 3 lives in one, Carroll Shelby.
I'm standing right by CSX 2001, which is Carroll Shelby's first production car. I feel it a privilege to be the custodian for this car. And when I think of Carroll Shelby, who's worthy of praise and celebration, I think of here's a man that was an amazing salesperson and could build a team. He knew how to put together a race team and had great drivers and knew how to win.
First off, he was bigger than life. He was, I met him in the early 60s, and they just came back from Le Mans. And Carroll was an innovator.
Carroll Shelby truly represents the American dream. Starting from humble beginnings in rural East Texas, he became an Air Force pilot, championship race car driver, and went on to create some of the most iconic sports cars in automotive history.
You know, spoke his mind, had a colorful language, but took something that he believed in and turned it into a belief. And a lot of people today don't realize that at one point in his life, he built the fastest car in the world.
When he built the Cobras, when he first started doing that, that was pretty amazing, you know, to talk Ford into giving him a few engines and put in these little Cobras. And that changed the world, that changed motorsports.
There was a Mr. Shelby. You know, I don't think there was a Mr. Camaro. You know, there were Chevrolet brothers, but he took a dream and a desire and he made it come true.
When you think of Southern California, you think of Shelby naturally, because he was based here in Southern California. And most of his drivers is from Southern California.
He was very influential in the car market and the world of racing. And as we all know, the racing devices that they put on the cars eventually come into everyday passenger cars because they are safety features. And, this was kind of overseen in the years past, but it holds true today too.
One of the attributes that Carroll really displayed throughout his life was his ability to connect with people. He can make anybody feel at ease talking about any subject. That's something I try and carry forward in my role at Shelby American today.
It's through evenings like tonight, and it's through celebration that they live.
Today, Carroll's influence in the automotive industry remains strong. That is evident through the continued popularity of the Shelby brand and the products that we produce today. In addition to Team Shelby, the enthusiast group that operates worldwide, celebrating the history of Carroll Shelby. You never know what's going to come down the pipeline next at Shelby American, but you can rest assured that Carroll's up there saying, I want more horsepower.
He's still a legend, still admired, and still beloved. And Ford Motor Company still produces Shelby cars, which will go on for generations, because he was that guy that people think of with performance and people think of about Southern California.
I thought I was being cool and I worked on my pronunciation, Le Mans. And Snake calls it Le Mans. Screw it, it's Le Mans from now on, okay? We're gonna have to have the French say it correctly. On behalf of the legend Carroll Shelby, Tracy Smith.
Thank you so much. Carroll Shelby was an amazing human. Obviously, tonight we honor him, and we're so grateful. Thank you for recognizing his accomplishments in automotive. He once said that he wasn't particularly good at anything. He just liked putting great people together to see what happens. And that was so Carroll, right? Always putting it off to somebody else. But next year, we're celebrating 3 significant anniversaries: the 60th anniversary of the FIA World Championship, the 427, and the GT350. I mean, come on, one of those accomplishments would have been amazing, but 3, so Carroll. And Carroll was really passionate about people. He loved, the community. He loved all of you guys. There's so many words to describe Carroll Shelby. Some of them may be true, but he was, for people who really knew him, I think he was larger than life. And in being larger than life, people assume a lot of things. But honestly, if I could think of a few words about him, a racer, an aviator, passionate, nonstop, all the things that we all aspire to be, that was Carroll. And silently, all these years, even after his passing, he continues to inspire so many people in his graciousness. He would never say that about himself. He would say, Tracy, you're full of BS right now. But you know what? He was the real deal. And I was so grateful to be able to work with him the last part of his life. And being a part of that, and a couple of the last interviews that I sat in with him, not knowing, I was young, I just came from Mattel, we inducted him in the Hot Wheel Hall of Fame, he grinded on me to come work for him, and I was like, eventually I gave in, thank God, honestly, because I learned so much from this individual. But in this last interview with Dave Dresden, he said, he's talking about all the great things that he'd accomplished, and then he said, but honestly, I just want to be remembered as somebody who always tried. I never gave up. He's like, I've been rich, I've been poor, I don't want to be poor again, but I want people to remember that I always tried, no matter what, and that's something that I really appreciated about him, his genuineness. And I think this tonight is such an honor to be a part of, but just the legacy of Carroll Shelby, not only as the legend, but also as the man, because that's who he really was in his heart. He was the man, and he would say tonight, all the words we have for him, he would call you guys all friends. So thank you so much for this honor.
I can't talk and smile. What Tracy said about Carroll, about the man, just being around him on a day-to-day basis. My children's godparents did IT and phone systems, and one of the ones they did is Shelby's outlet there, I think it was Gardena area. And these are certifications of greatness, right? These people did some great stuff. They invented or perfected or stretched or went above and beyond. And Carroll definitely did that. But I think the mark of a good person is cameras aren't on. It's just a conversation with a stranger. And to have somebody with that level of character, everything Tracy said, I couldn't agree with more, and very, very well deserved. Our next recipient, Dan Gurney. And yeah, Riverside guy. I remember, I think it was 1974, as a little kid, my buddy got one of those Dan Gurney bicycles. And I thought, not only is that bicycle cool, but that guy had a bicycle named after him. That's probably as cool as it gets. And then he had this little piece of metal named after him, the Gurney flap, which changed racing, and it looked stupidly easy. Who wouldn't have thought of that? The answer was nobody but Dan. And it changed racing, and still use him on all kinds of cars today. He was an innovator. He was a hell of a driver. The guy won, the year Shelby won Le Mans, right? Snake, that's how you pronounce it, as Le Mans. In 59, the other big race was Sebring, and Dan Gurney won that race driving a Ferrari. And he won Le Mans in 1967 in what you could argue, and certainly at the time, was the first and only all-American car and team to be able to do that. Anybody know who the co-driver was with Gurney when they won Le Mans? You didn't have to raise your hand. Yeah, there's no grades. Yeah, a guy named A.J. Foyt. They're just an amazing year. And when they won, Lindy, are you close by? I'm going to have Lindy start heading up to the stage here. Yeah, see, I'm lobbing you guys softball so nobody has to run when they come up here. But when Dan won Le Mans in Snake, it does roll off the tongue easier when you say Le Mans, right? In 1967, they handed them the ubiquitous bottle of champagne, and the winners always took a sip of it. And Gurney did something that literally changed the face of every motorsports winner's circle from that point on. He didn't drink it, he sprayed it all over everybody. I hate that shit. It's hard to get out of the fire suit. But it beats losing in the final round. But literally, that signature move, was it 57 years ago, changed the face of virtually every winner's circle in motorsports from that point on. I think that's a pretty cool deal. We're going to roll video on a guy that was local, cool as can be, and changed the face of motorsports, Dan Gurney.
My name is Bruce Meyer, and I consider myself the #1 fan of Daniel Sexton Gurney. And for a lot of reasons, he's my hero. He grew up in Southern California. He was a hot rodder, and he literally checked every box in motorsports, from Formula One behind me, NASCAR, sports cars, Le Mans. He did it all so beautifully and handsomely and gracefully. And it's just a pleasure to celebrate Dan's history today.
I knew him as my father, so it wasn't like growing up. My mom would always say, "Your dad was a famous race car driver."
You know, at Riverside, I went to every race at Riverside. I camped out up on Turn 6 and watched Dan race sports cars, Can-Am, stock cars. He checked every box, and he was an amazing engineer. He had a feel for motorsports like none other in history that I'm aware of. The idea of building your own Formula One car in Southern California, in Santa Ana, and competing on a global scale.
He goes, "I want to go up against the best guys and see how I do." And obviously he did very well in all of them. He had a lot of tenacity when it came to anything. He was a racer, through and through. No matter what it was, he wanted to win.
Behind me is a 1966 Gurney Eagle, the very first Eagle he made. And to me, it's just one of the most beautiful, iconic, and artistic Formula One cars in history.
Especially in Southern California, but being an American and going over to Europe and racing against the best they have there, and showing that American can do it, later on, especially with his own car.
Comparing Dan to motorsports today is impossible. Motorsports today is computer modeling, computer ignition. It's so AI headed, but Dan was hands-on. He knew what he wanted, he could visualize it, and he could construct it, and in the most artistic way.
He was a best father, taking us dirt bike riding when we were kids and doing all these dangerous things that other parents were kind of shying away from. He was so modest.
And this is Dan. Everything he did had great style and always a salute to America. This was all American racers, and he was a patriot.
A lot of our recipients are no longer with us, and that's a shame. But I can't help thinking, if Dan's looking down, he's got son Danny and his daughter Lindy up here to accept on his behalf. That's got to be like the next best thing. So Lindy, congratulations to both of you on your father's induction.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy and proud to be up here for Dad. Normally, I'm watching Dad get awards, but here I am, accepting this for Dad. Thank you, Lions Automobilia Foundation. I didn't prepare a speech because Evie said I didn't have to, so I didn't. But there was a different side to Dad that not very many people got to see. And that was the Dad that we got to see at home. It was the Dad that we got to go skiing with. It was the Dad that when we'd go over to Dad and Evie's house and Grandma and Grandpa were there, I would go home the next day and my ribs, they were so sore from laughing so hard because Grandpa and my dad were the best at limericks. And I wished I had written some of them down because some of the ones my grandpa said were amazingly funny. Anyways, we were very fortunate to have those times. So you guys know a lot more about my dad than I do, but I'm on the Dan Gurney group on Facebook, and I can't believe he did the things he did, and I cannot believe the places he went. And I remember Evie telling me she packed, I don't know, 79 suitcases in 3 months. Dad never packed a suitcase ever. She did it all. But I'm very fortunate to be her stepdaughter. She's the best stepmother ever, the best mother ever. And my brothers, Justin, Allie, Jimmy, and Danny. And then, of course, life wouldn't be here without Kathy and my husband. But yeah, that's my dad. He's the best. Thank you.
I like having the human face get put on because, like Lindy said, God, you guys know more about my dad. No. We watch TV, we read the newspapers, and now we can go on the internet. We know a lot about these people's accomplishments. But it's what he was like when he took you skiing or showed you how to ride a bike or helped you with the school paper that makes the hero an even better person, because you realize that they're also a dad, a husband, a wife, whatever. They're doing all the regular things in life and changing the face of a sport that they love very much. So very well deserved, and pretty sure he's smiling right now. You couldn't have followed the accomplishments of Parnelli Jones in the dirt without knowing who Bill Stroppe was. They were almost joined at the hip when it came to what they did off-road, and what they did off-road was absolutely legendary. Bill Stroppe was born in Long Beach, one of the few that didn't migrate from another state out here. He was in the Navy in World War II, and as a young man, it was clear he had some sort of mechanical gift that most people didn't. He was actually issued a presidential citation. While he was on the carrier, he devised a technique to refuel the aircraft faster, and also made a smoke generating machine to help mask the position of the aircraft carriers out there. He was a guy gifted and way ahead of his time while he was in uniform, and when he transitioned to civilian life, he never slowed down. He and Parnelli teamed up in '64, and that was before they took their action out in the desert, and they won the USAC championship handily with that combination of driver and engine man. I talked about the connective tissue that's joining people here. Jack Chrisman, one of drag racing's legends, debuted a car in 1964 that some could argue, and rightfully so, was the first nitro funny car. Gene Mooneyham did the engine for that car and was assisted by Bill Stroppe on some of that. And it's very cool the way that tonight's legends and heroes, maybe unintentionally, but their careers overlapped significantly. In 1978, Bill was inducted into the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. So you think about that, that's, 46 years ago, he was already that legendary that he was able to make a Hall of Fame. I don't know who, is Maddox, where are you right now? Is Maddox here? You're not in trouble, you didn't park in the wrong spot, Maddox, I swear to God. Maddox, is this accurate? Are you a grandchild?
Yes.
Okay.
Great grandchild.
You're a little conceited? Oh, you're a great-grandchild. I thought you were saying you were like the best grandchild that ever existed. You are a great-grandson?
Yes, of Bill Stroppe.
Well, I'm guessing because he's the one getting the trophy tonight. Was he 10 when he started having kids? He was born in 1919, right? Well, I think that's fantastic. Talked about, there's going to be one of our legends tonight that will be accepting the award in person, and the rest it's going to be children, grandchildren, or awesome grandchildren, right? I mean, great-grandchildren. So let's roll video on Bill Stroppe.
I mostly knew him through off-road racing, but he did so many other things, I mean, the name Stroppe and up on Signal Hill where his shop was and stuff, I mean, yeah, that was big. And my dad's first off-road race was in one of Stroppe's trucks.
Bill, of course, was a hands-on guy. He's in there working himself, and he's steam cleaning the Broncos himself. And I says, Bill, you got all kinds of guys that can do this. He says, Larry, but I learned a lot from this. Up here cleaning, I can find out where the weak spots in these cars are.
His Ford relationship was really strong because he performed for him. And that was the thing. You can have relationships with a lot of those different factories, but if you don't perform for them, you're out.
They were bringing a single effort technology that's kind of pushing the boundaries. But Bill, his level was big. I mean, he had big efforts, big crews. He always was the most professional guy out there.
What you have to realize is these guys like Bill Stroppe were the innovators of off-road racing. I mean, he became the guy out there in off-road racing in our day. And they just live, eat it, and sleep it,
And he did everything right. I mean, he set a standard for the industry.
The one guy in the world that didn't need a name on his shirt had his name on his shirt.
We've done a lot of things over our history, and one of those things was the Pantera program for a Ford Motor Company, where we worked with Bill Stroppe. In 1971, in June, the longshore was getting ready to strike. We didn't have too much time from 9 o'clock to noon to get about 50 Panteras out of the holes onto the docks and outside the fence so that we could take possession of them. We would hop into the Panteras and drive them off the dock. You can't do that in this day, but in that day we were driving the Panteras off the docks and outside the fence so that we could take possession of the Panteras. Once we got all of the Panteras outside, then Bill Stroppe was driving them up to Signal Hill from there. Of course, the Panteras were covered with cosmoline at the time, so it was kind of a neat thing to drive through the communities with these Panteras, which was a new car.
I thought his organization is what really dazzled me. I mean, how do you bring that many cars to a race and keep track of all that stuff? So, and his support staff. He had a lot of good people that worked for him.
Bill was very, pushing the boundaries back in the day and very successful, and it was in everything that he did. I think that, having an example like that is very important for people today.
I always said you can really tell the caliber of accomplishments of somebody by the people that vouch for them. And the connective tissue, again, is just so cool to see. You got Larry Minor, you got Danny Thompson up there celebrating a man who did so many awesome things on-road and off-road, and I think that it's super cool that his great-grandson wanted to come up here and help celebrate with us tonight. Take it away, Maddox.
Thank you so much. My name is Maddox Stroppe. I am Bill Stroppe's great-grandson. I would like to thank the Lions Museum and the committee for the award on behalf of the Stroppe family. I have been Willie Stroppe's sidekick since birth. Everything I know about cars and race cars is all because of him. And all of the memories from going to all the shows I will treasure forever. It is my honor to be here to represent the Stroppe family. Thank you and God bless.
So what Maddox was referring to is his grandpa, Billy, and his grandpa's dad is getting the trophy tonight. I think that's amazing to be a part of that. We're all related one way or the other, aren't we? Thank you, Maddox, and congratulations again. '63 Indy. I think you guys know where we're going with this. Parnelli Jones. A lot of times what someone means to you has to do with how old you are, right? If they were accomplishing things for 50 years, but you didn't come along till you're 30, that's locked in your memory bank. It's like, who's your favorite James Bond? When I was a kid, Parnelli Jones was in the big Ole Bronco and he was killing them on the off-road deal. And it wasn't till later that you step back and you're like, oh, he did this, and he did this, and he did this, and he didn't dabble. Parnelli didn't dabble. Parnelli kicked butt. Whatever he did, I don't know if he was the luckiest driver out there. I just think he had this uncanny talent. And the more you read up on him, I'm very fortunate today to compete against a gentleman in drag racing who has won in just about every type of vehicle he's ever strapped into, and his name is Tony Stewart. And Smoke just has this talent for driving vehicles and this mentality about how to do it that's made him successful in everything. And I've told people, I'm thrilled to be in that generation with him and competing at the same time as him. And someday when they write the book on the greatest of all time, Tony Stewart has to be in that conversation. Parnelli Jones starts that conversation. What that man did holding a steering wheel would be nearly impossible to duplicate. You think about the discipline to win on a car that's jumping at 80 miles an hour, landing in the desert and going through terrain that you haven't really scouted out, versus going into turn 4 at Indy and trying to draft and drive the wheels off that car. And they don't seem like they're compatible skill sets, and somehow he managed to pull it off. What he won in 1963, that was the Agajanian Special. It was amazing. They won the USAC Stock Car Championship in 64, won Baja in 71 and 72. And I don't know who's going to make that top 10 list. And I'm sorry, I'm getting out of sequence. Joy, are you close by here? You don't have to run. Told you guys I'd give you a little bit of time. Joy, are we in the house? Again, there's no parking tickets and you're not in trouble, but we would like you to head up here. You did. Now, don't tell me you're a great, just not just a grandchild. You're a damn fine grandchild, Joey. I want you. Am I pronouncing it right? Is it Joey? Joey. Okay. Yeah. And again, I think coming up and accepting on behalf of your grandpa, and I'm kind of curious what you have to say about Grandpa, because Grandpa to you, and just one of the greatest drivers of all time to most of the other people out there. Let's roll film on Parnelli.
Parnelli was a legend. I mean, that's really the only way to put it. He's had so much influence on so many people, and it's really crazy to see even my generation. So many people know who he is and aspire to do what he's done. And
he was an awesome racer as well as a great car owner.
Who do you think you are, Parnelli Jones? Or who do you think you are, Dan Gurney? Both those gentlemen, racers, competitors, were unique in the fact that they were hot rodders, Southern California, and literally drove everything.
The one golden rule there is in motorsports, you want to win everything there is. And that's where some of these people that were in the Indianapolis car, like Parnelli and my dad, he did so many different forms of motorsports and then into Indianapolis and stuff, and there was so many restrictions and all that kind of stuff. Baja was open.
It was always a good person to have in your corner at the races, because he'd help give you strategies.
Parnelli was behind us. He never caught us. There was a bet between them, and didn't catch us. But when Parnelli caught us, it was he all of a sudden he hits us from behind, and my dad's going, "What's that? What's that?" And undo your seatbelt. Look, turn around. Look, see what's back there. I said, "It's Parnelli." And my dad says, "Where is he? Where is he?" He's on the right. He's on the left. So now I'm doing color commentation to my dad, turning around looking at Parnelli. "Oh, he's upside down. He's upside down." He hit something, and he's sliding on the side, and the thing hit another rock and bounced back up on the wheels, and he smoked by us.
It's called talent. He was always one of the winners.
There's no way that the advancements in safety would be where they are today without these guys. I mean, if there weren't successful drivers that had been injured or killed in races, the safety wouldn't be where it is today.
He would feel honored because he loves everyone, loved all the public that made him so big, and basically he loved everyone. He was a warm person.
That's how it was. He was my grandpa. He wasn't a driver. He was just Papa Nelly. That's what we called him, and that's just who he was to me. I never had seen him race. He was a long time retired before I was born. I have a lot of respect for what he's done and everything that he's accomplished, but to me, he's just my grandpa.
He lives right here in my heart, and I miss him. And he was just a good advice giver.
My grandpa really inspired me just by really accomplishing everything that there is to do in racing. I mean, he raced in Formula One, won the Indianapolis 500, won the Baja 1000, and so many other races. So doing that today is really impossible.
On behalf of Parnelli, or as we now call him, Papanelli, his granddaughter, Joey.
Parnelli Jones is not only a legend, he's my grandfather. He's an icon who changed the face of American motorsport and set new standards across nearly every racing discipline he entered. As great as all of his accomplishments are, he was an amazing human being in this dimension cannot be captured by trophies and records alone. People don't often see the side of him that I would. He was the person who taught me how to ride a bike and drive anything that had four wheels. I would always sit on his lap and steer, whether it was a snowmobile or whatever vehicle we were in. I not only looked up to my grandpa, but he was my best friend. He'd be watching any race that was on and sipping on his red wine or Miller Lite. I'd sit next to him and tell him about what I did that day or what I was planning on doing. He always had a tough shell to crack, and he prided himself on being strong and silent. But when it came to something funny, he was laughing, and it was always contagious. I guess we know where I got that from. When we'd go out for family dinners, everyone would take separate cars because he would always judge everyone for their driving, which I always thought was funny until I started driving. My grandfather and his good friend Jimmy Dillamarter have inspired me to pursue a career in the racing industry. So I'm currently attending classes at SoCal Rock for welding and fabrication, hoping to become an IndyCar fabricator. He's pushed me to do more than I ever thought I could. I look up to him for all of his accomplishments, I can't say it, yeah. Such as winning the Indy 500 in Old Calhoun and even breaking the record for first person to go over 150 miles per hour. Winning the Baja 1000 twice, the Baja 500 twice, and the Mint 400, all my personal favorite Big Oli. There were many more on top of that. But most of all, I remember the time he shared with me and how I will miss him dearly. I think about him when I see the memorial stickers on all of my devices, especially the one I have on my laptop I use every day at school. Let's remember him as a pioneer, an inspiration, and a true legend in motorsport. But let's also remember Parnelli Jones is more than just a driver, but a person who has affected all of our lives and whose memory lives on. Speaking on behalf of the entire Jones family, I'm Joey Jones, Parnelli and Judy Jones's favorite granddaughter. We would like to thank you all for honoring and supporting my grandfather on his journey through racing.
Well played, Joey. But Maddox said he was a great grandchild, so fantastic. So we learned a little something about his success. It's red wine and beer, Steve. It's literally that easy. Not going to give it a shot this weekend, brother. Congratulations to Parnelli and family for doing that. Our next inductee, Wally Parks. Wally Parks. Talked about being in the same room with Carroll Shelby. I was in the same room with Shelby and Parks when they started telling stories. God, I wish there was red wine and beer that night, because both of them, great memories, amazing accomplishments, and a good ability to articulate the facts of it to make it entertaining for the people in the room. I love the fact I qualified #1 at the World Finals in 2006. And Wally and I had chatted several times on and off, in and out of the museum and about different things. In fact, I had asked him at one point, and not as a trick question, as a fan of the sport and historian, I said, who got the first Wally? So that trophy was posed for in February of 1969 by a top gas racer by the name of Jack Jones on the right side of Pomona, right by the starting line, but the trophy wasn't ready to go for that race or the next race. It wasn't ready until the U.S. National, was still called just the Nationals, in 1969. And Wally had no idea. Bob Fry did a pretty good job of tracking it down, because in 1969 they brought back all the previous top eliminator winners, gave them some, but we still don't know who got the first one. But I got to hold Don Perdome's 1969 U.S. Nationals Wally, which was amongst the first ones that were ever handed out there, and I thought that was pretty cool and pretty special. But when I qualified #1 at the finals, Wally rode over on his golf cart, and he told me he was proud of me. And I'm like, wow. I wasn't even sure he knew my name. We'd had a couple of chats. Obviously, I idolized is probably not too strong of a word. Admired, respected, revered the man. And to have him come over and know that he was still paying attention to the sport and the people that were
well, that we're taking his baton into the next generation. I thought that was really, really cool. Wally was born in Oklahoma, moved out to Southgate at the age of 8. In 1937, he helped establish the Southern California Timing Association. They ran up on the dry lakes. He was always an organizer. He became president of that association after the war. He became editor of Hot Rod magazine right from the start, January of 1948. And I'll tell you what I think is pretty cool. First issue of Hot Rod magazine was January 1948. And there was a gentleman I was talking to long time ago. And he said he didn't know the magazine was coming out. But I got an ad in the February of 1948 issue. And he got his car in the June of 1948 Hot Rod magazine cover. And he's sitting in this room right over at that table, Ed Iskandarian. I think that's pretty darn cool at 103 years old. Richard and Scott, if you guys want to head up here before we roll tape on this. Wally did drive. He drove the Suddenly car out in Florida on the beach, set a speed record with the thing. A really interesting story about that. His son Richard's written tons of manuscripts and covers just detail upon detail of some of the things that Wally had accomplished. And then in 1951, probably the one he's best known for was forming the National Hot Rod Association, which has gone on to, well, it motivate a whole lot of us and change a whole lot of the face of motorsports there. So without further ado, let's roll camera on one of the coolest guys I've ever known, Wally Parks.
Wally always took the high road when it comes to motorsports. He was dedicated to do it right, to have the best rules you could have, the best procedures, the best safety, and the best people to administer the sport.
He was elected the president of the Southern California Timing Association, and met Robert Peterson. My dad went to work as the first professional editor of Hot Rod magazine. In 1951, my father was concerned about how the news and the media were portraying hot rodders. My father was going to create an organization that would be national to protect the hot rodding culture.
And I think his creation of the NHRA Safety Safari early on to travel the country and introduce timing and scoring systems, a unified length of a quarter mile for the distance for which drag racing would be conducted, and then to start through publications, initiating with Hot Rod magazine when he was the editor there, and then evolving into the National Hot Rod Association's weekly tabloid publication, National Dragster. Spread the word, organize people, embrace car club culture.
Did I think that he could see perhaps the growth and the explosive growth of the sport from, like him as a teenager? No, but I think that he saw great value in taking a bunch of outlaws, basically, street racers, and forming them into a cohesive, law-abiding yet entertaining group. Yeah, he was a visionary.
Wally was probably the perfect person to do this, to help legitimize the sport of hot rodding, right? Because back then, everybody saw the movies. There was the jackbooted thugs, terrorizing the neighborhood with their burnouts, and Wally saw much more than that, knew it was much more than that. But he had to mobilize everybody, to one voice, one vision.
We have to have safety in this sport. That is paramount. That's what my dad lived for. He really never thought himself as working. He thought more of as the fact that he was enjoying something he loved to do and wanted everybody to share in it.
And the NHRA became the gold standard of drag racing.
Growth of the NHRA is the growth of the industry. And so the SEMA program, Speed Equipment Manufacturing Association, my father was involved in assisting people all the time, encouraging them, trying to get them to do things to improve upon their products and on the safety of their equipment.
I think that he would be very proud of those who have taken the baton and have carried with it. I would think that he would be, very, very happy and content with how the organization is run today.
And I think he inspired people, his passion. He was a crusader for this, and I think it wasn't hard to rally behind that.
On behalf of Wally's son Richard, grandchildren Scott and Mary, and you know, you can't help but think when you're getting inducted in the Hall of Fame and the people that we've got representing tonight, what I would love is every one of them to take an hour and a half and just tell us stuff. I want to hear more. I want to hear everything that you got to say. We got 5 to 8 to 10 minutes, and you just get a brief snippet of stuff. But with Wally, thank God, he was there for 60 plus years. So many of us got to do so much stuff with him. So Richard, take it away, sir, and congratulations to you guys.
You're not going to hear all the rumors and the gossip and the stories and the skeletons in the closet. You don't have time for that. But I will say, if you want to hear his story, I wrote it in 35 volumes. My son told me to keep it short. 35 volumes is not short. I want to thank the Lorenzen family. Rick, he was a gentleman. He was a man I admired. Randy, it's your brother, right? Randy? Oh, just you. Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't there a Randy Lorenzen? Tammy Lorenzen.
We can Google right now if you want, Richard, and find out. Yeah.
See, already I'm forgetful. But I want
volume 36, by the way.
I want to thank the Lions, all the docents, all the volunteers. In fact, I want to thank every one of you for coming out today. You meant so much to my father. I think each and every one of you know my father. He just loved the sport, and he loved you guys. And I can't begin to enumerate each and every one of you. That would take way too long, but I want to say thank you. Now, my son has a timer on me. He's over there hiding. He's a 6'5", 6'6" guy. Stand up, everybody. Come on. He's got some.
He just said he reset the timer 3 times, Richard. Yeah.
Grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Come on, stand up so they can see how tall you are.
Richard, I got a quick question. I just got a quick question. Do you guys get free tickets for this weekend? I'm hoping somebody does, because I don't. Okay, take it away.
Where did they get their height? I didn't get any of it. That's all right. I'm a tall 5'9". Anyway, I want to thank all of you today. And if you really want to hear the story of how the NHRA was formed, write to me. I'll send you the story. If you can live long enough to read 35 volumes. This is my niece, my younger brother's daughter. Unfortunately, he's not here. Mary, say hello to everybody. Mary, say hello to everybody.
I'm just going to keep it quick and just say...
Well, your cousin said you only got 18 more minutes on the timer, so yeah.
No, he gave me only 2 minutes.
Just say thank you for honoring the father of drag racing and our grandfather. We're honored to be here tonight.
This is my son, Scott, 6'6". Get over here, Scott.
See, my dad has mastered the art of the filibuster, and
35 volumes.
My grandfather, if you've known him, he had a steel trap mind, and obviously did not translate to my dad just now, for having forgotten half of what he's going to say. But I just want to add a few words on behalf of the Parks family. We wish to extend a sincere thank you to the Lorenzen family, Lana Chrisman, and this beautiful palace you have here, this Lions Museum and Foundation. Thank you so much on behalf of our family.
I forgot Lana.
Congratulations to all three of you.
Thank you very much.
Very well deserved.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. You do such a great job.
And then there were 2. The other Jack, Steve. That guy. As a kid, you don't know what you're going to be when you grow up. You may have hopes, dreams, aspirations. You don't know. And you don't know the opportunities that you may have missed.
And if you had that crystal ball, you'd certainly do a lot of things different. One of my bigger regrets in the sport, and I told Steve this 10 years ago, Atlanta, I never got to meet your dad. Because like if you're into drag racing, Jack Chrisman, unbelievable. His brother Art Chrisman, unbelievable. Oh, not his brother. We're going to clarify that, right? Jack is Art's uncle. You need to write that down. 14 kids, it gets very confusing there. Everybody thought they were brothers. They hung out a lot together. They were both great enough to make the first year, first ballot International Drag Race Hall of Fame. That's what the Chrisman family has meant to drag racing. Jack Chrisman, I would argue was a second touring professional in drag racing, 2 months behind Tommy Ivo. The guy was literally on the leading edge of being so good that drag race strips from around the country called and said, we'll give you this amount of money to go there. And he eventually said, I can make a living doing this. And he did. And he won a lot of races and he drove a lot of cars. He drove front engine cars. He drove funny cars. He drove cars with the motor behind him and it turned sideways. And he drove everything well. And he became so well known. I would love to know, within maybe a 1 month period in Southern California, how many different people's cars he hopped in to test drive and helped them sort out the cars. That's how great Jack Chrisman was. Steve was kind enough to give me a trophy earned at Niagara Dragway in New York. You know what year that would have been when your father? 59 or 60, yeah, and it means the world to me. I got a really cool lamp at home that doesn't work, but it's a trophy that Lions Drag Strip gave out to their top winners there, and it's a Jack Chrisman trophy, and it's really cool. Shelby, I'll send you a picture of it, but it's not for sale, I'm just telling you. Your grandpa was cool. Anyway, I was fortunate enough to win the 60th edition of the NHRA Winter Nationals, 2020. Was that really the 60th, Steve, or the 61st? Because didn't they have one in 1960 called the NHRA Winter Nationals? They sure did. Somehow that one got erased from the history books. It was the NHRA NASCAR Winter Nationals in Lakeland, Florida, and we don't talk about that one. So really, the first Winter Nationals for NHRA is Pomona 1961, and a gentleman driving a twin-engine small block Chevy car with him canted here for another gentleman named Howard Johansson, one top limiter that race, and that was Jack Chrisman. And when I got out and got the trophy, I couldn't wait to say another Jack did it 60 years later. And I just thought it was cool to be in the footsteps of a giant, because that man was absolutely a giant. So a lot of times I get asked the trivia question, what was the first funny car? We can debate this for half an hour, but I think there's 4 very legitimate answers to that. But 2 of them are Jack Chrisman, whether it's the 64 Mercury Comet with the setback blown and injected fuel motor, or the 66 Mercury Comets that were fiberglass bodied and flip top. He was that good that he was entrusted with handling those cars at that time. So first year, when Don Garlett said we're starting a drag race Hall of Fame, I need 20 people that were so good, we're going to put them in on year 1. Jack Chrisman was that good. You guys want to come up and talk about Pops and Grandpa? Let's roll video on Jack Chrisman.
Wow, Jack Chrisman, I mean, he's a legend for sure. And I mean, he did so much when it wasn't real safe out there, you know, and I mean, he did a lot of things, and he was fast, innovative, you know, came up with the first funny car, and I mean, a lot of different things. And Jack was kind of like, almost like a second dad to me. So, like, I never got away with anything when I was a kid.
My grandfather started racing in the early 50s, with his first car being his 1929 Model A that is actually still here at the Lions Automobilia Foundation Museum and owned by the Chrisman family.
You know, they were the master of the rear ends. They just, if you wanted a rear end to hold up to your car, you got a Chrisman rear end. It changed the rear end world in drag racing. They built this billet aluminum live axle rear end, and I tell you, I was the only guy that had them. All the racers wanted them, and Jack and Steve, they wouldn't let until I told them they could have them. They wouldn't let any of the racers have them.
One of the founders of the funny car class, for one thing. One of the first original drag racers in the early 50s. Basically at Lions Drag Strip where he started, that and Santa Ana Drag Strip. And then become one of the first touring pros in the late 50s and early 60s until he retired from drag racing in 1970, 71.
I think probably the way Jack influenced me personally was, but he was straight up, and there was no lying, or it was always the deal. It was straightforward. There wasn't any game. It wasn't any kind of like trying to trick you into this or that. What he said, you didn't have to second guess or anything. It was the deal.
My dad had the first nitro funny car, and then he had all the first flip-top cars, and then all the drag racing innovation that came out in the late 60s and early 70s with the rear-end and dragsters, and they're saying, well, that's a new innovation. Well, my dad had rear-end dragsters and the sidewinders in the late 1950s. So there's not really a lot of innovation as that. It's recopying things that they found out from the original race car guys.
35 years after Grandpa's passing, and he's still very much an influence in motorsports. Whether it's a hot rod magazine spotlighting him, going to the drag strip and seeing the Nitro Funny car, to all the Chrisman customers out at the track running the Chrisman Ren, and then of course the family shop that's been open for 52 years that Grandpa started in 1972 in his garage in Long Beach.
He never thought of himself as a legend. Like this is the same as Mickey Thompson. They're just everyday guys working hard, loving what they do, and then when the results come at the end of the day, then they just say, okay, let's start and work tomorrow.
Being recognized as Jack Chrisman's granddaughter has definitely motivated me when it comes to working in the industry, especially since I'm still in the same industry he was. My grandpa and my cousin had set very high standards for what the Chrisman name is. And I think about that every time I go into work or I go to a trade show, or if I'm ever wearing the Chrisman name, I think about the standards that they set for being a Chrisman.
We're listening to son Steve talk about his dad, and Steve and I have talked for hours, because when Steve was young, he got to go tour with his dad, which I think would just be the ultimate thing. Not only did he go tour, he was hands-on on the car, and he remembers everything. Just talking about going around the country and the different races and the different cars and the different engines, and this connective tissue. Year one here, Hall of Fame, Mickey Thompson was one of the inductees. Jack Chrisman won plenty of races driving for Mickey Thompson. Yeah, it's just cool. Steve, I know you're incredibly proud of your dad, Lana, to have you here taking care of business at the museum and to watch your daughter come up and receive it. Not a great granddaughter,
No,
but a granddaughter who's
but
really,
I am the favorite.
who's really great. Shelby Chrisman.
In my video, I mentioned knowing my grandpa through the stories that I've heard from his friends, fans, and other legends, some of which are here tonight: Carroll Olsen, Bones, Bob Moravis, Ed Escuderian, Don Perdome. But the most important person who made sure I knew who my grandpa was my grandma. Growing up, she would tell us stories while showing us photos and home videos. She would let us play dress up in his sponsorship jackets, his t-shirts, and even his fire suits. Even reading to us all the magazines he was featured in, which was a lot. The 29 Model A that is actually on display here tonight in the back of the room was my grandma's daily driver before my grandpa and my cousin Art had the smart idea of converting it into a race car. I'm sure you can all imagine how excited she was walking in on that, the rooftop of her car being cut off. The plan for the Model A was for my cousin Art to drive it, but he wasn't able to attend one of the races. This is when my grandma took the opportunity and asked Grandpa, well, why don't you just drive it? I'm sure no one's surprised it didn't take much convincing, and he got in that seat and started his drag racing career. That same Model A, my mom, grandma, sister, and I drove down the Pomona drag strip almost 50 years after my grandpa's first time sitting in it. My grandpa, like I'm sure many others, they didn't care too much to hold on to their memorabilia at the time. But my grandma, she knew just how big of a time he was going to be. So not only do my sister and I have nearly 20 containers full of magazines at home, but other memorabilia as well. All his stuff is also featured in museums all across the country, along with Hall of Fames. for the next generations to see. My grandpa has many accomplishments under his belt, but one of them you're seeing every single weekend is the Nitro Funny Car that he introduced to NHRA in 1964 with the Chrisman Comet, sponsored by Satch & Sons. The Nitro Funny Car, being one of NHRA's leading classes today, has some of the biggest names in the sport, like John Forrest, Ron Capps, and even some guy named Jack Beckman.
Thank you.
I had to throw that in there.
Well played, girl.
I want to take a moment to say thank you to the Lions Automobilia volunteers, board members, Tammy, and Rick Lorenzen, for not only having me up here tonight accepting the award on behalf of my grandfather, but also preserving the legacy of the industry we all love so much, and also looking towards the next generation of enthusiasts coming in our way. Thank you.
Steve, Lana, please come up. Don't worry, it's not a special award. We need your picture for your dad's trophy here. Lana doesn't get to pose for a whole lot of pictures. Steve's a top fuel driver and pretty damn famous in his own right. Well done, Shelby, and congratulations to the entire family. And then there was one. Well, you don't know who it is yet. Oh, you guys got the script, okay.
Yeah.
I see you left some money up here, Shelby. Thank you. Where's Steve sitting right now? How much family do we have with us? The three girls are here? How many grandkids? I hear them shouting over on this side too. Steve, did you know that? We'll do some 23 and me later here. This one's going to be a no-brainer for me and super easy. I've spent a lot of time around Steve. I think we are excellent friends, and I've said this since a week after I met him. He's one of my favorite human beings in the world. And it's never the stuff that Steve told me about Steve. It's the stuff that other drag racers told me about Steve. And it's not one or two stories. It's just the same type of story over and over again. Friend of mine who passed away years ago, but drove Top Gas and Top Fuel back in the late 60s and couldn't afford to go get his fire suit, but the brake lines burned off his car, charred his ankles, third-degree burns, and he's in the hospital laid up, and it's Christmas Eve, and he's miserable and he's depressed, and he wakes up from the morphine, and Steve Gibbs is sitting by his bedside, brought him a bunch of books, left his family to go spend time with an injured racer on Christmas Eve. And he's done things like this dozens and dozens of times for hundreds of people. You're an amazing human being. I don't care if you ever did anything in drag racing. You're one of the coolest people I've ever met, but you've done a lot of stuff in drag racing. I just attended the Nitro Revival, 7th, Steve? 7th Nitro Revival, and the last one at Irwindale Drag Strip, because Southern California is fantastic at closing down racing facilities. We knew its days were limited. It was a great run with Nitro Revival. While it's there, we're going to have to find a landing place for it for next year. Steve's daughter, Cindy, has done an amazing job helping her dad, and this year was tougher than most. Yeah. So that event took place Friday and Saturday. I believe it was Tuesday before the Camarillo fires burned to the ground Steve and his soon-to-be bride. Where is Marge? So Steve and Marge were set to be married later this month. I don't think she backed out, right, Steve? And they've decided it makes more sense just to postpone it till March so they can get their feet back underneath them. But they've been through a lot of trauma in the last week and a half. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I would never wish it on those two people. They're some of the nicest people I've ever met. And Steve is in the International Drag Race Hall of Fame for good reason. When he's moved his Nitro Revival to Irwindale, he and I were sitting there talking about his history in drag racing, and I thought it was ironic that you could literally see across the flood control channel where he started his drag race career at San Gabriel Raceway, putting numbers on the cars in the staging lanes over 60 years before that. And he didn't win any races in a fuel car. Fairly certain he never tuned Prudhomme to a win.
But what he's done for the sport, his contributions I'd put him right up there next to Wally Parks's, because even when Steve left his job as competition director for NHRA, which, by the way, before he was hired in 1969 by NHRA, he'd already managed several tracks, and it seemed like he was on that trajectory to be involved in this sport. So after his gig as competition director, he was on the absolute ground floor of NHRA Historical Services, the NHRA Museum, which I would be remiss if I didn't point out, seated next to Carl Olson, Greg Sharp. Greg, if you would hold your hand up. And yeah. Greg's been struggling with some vision problems lately, which is a euphemistic way of saying he hasn't been able to see anything for a while. And we have our fingers crossed that he's going to make a recovery. An amazing attitude, another great friend of mine, and was also on the ground floor of the NHRA Motorsports Museum. And then Steve went on to do the hot rod reunions, the cackle fests. And if you were to explain to somebody, like when I'm watching, where's Cindy? Cindy, how many cars do we have out on the track for the fire up Saturday night? Close to 60. What's that mean, like 12? Yeah, you sound like a politician. Yeah, a bunch, right? Like from the burnout box to the finish line and beyond. And this time I wasn't in a car. I got to push start one earlier in the day, but I wanted to be a fly on the wall, and I just stood back where most of the spectators watched and just listened and looked around. And I actually happened to be standing next to the 1979 Top Fuel World Champ, Rob Bruins, and I was just watching his reaction to this and how emotional it is. Now, you step away from that and explain to somebody that's never been to motorsports how a bunch of retired people spent all this money to build this race car that wouldn't be legal for a damn thing. They tow it all over the country for free, pour this really expensive liquid into it, start it up, it hurts their ears, it burns their eyes, and they have a couple beers and tow the thing home and pay $4.25 a gallon for gas. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Until you stand there and listen to these cars, and I'm telling you guys, if you get it, you get it, and if you haven't, you have to go. It moves your soul. And Steve Gibbs has moved a lot of souls in his lifetime. Steve, I don't know, why don't we just bring everybody up? Because, my God, you're closing the show, and we can give you as much time as you want. It's hard to say enough. Let's roll video on Steve.
I've been involved in the drag racing world since I first set foot on the drag strip back in 1957. Went on to have a career with the National Hot Rod Association that lasted 48 years and still active. But basically my whole adult life has been involved in the sport of drag racing.
He's made a career out of a hobby.
I was hooked. I was just fascinated by drag racing. At the age of 26, they asked me to be the manager of Irwindale Raceway. Pretty young, and I established a relationship with the National Hot Rod Association. And in 1969, Wally Parks hired me full time.
No other two individuals that have done more for the sport of drag racing than Wally Parks and Steve Gibbs.
Well, in my particular role, I was the event director at almost 400 national events. I went to work for NHRA, actually in the advertising department, which was, I'm not an ad salesman, but Wally wanted me to come to work for NHRA. And in a short time, I transitioned over to the competition department. Wound up being a competition director at a pretty early age with the NHRA.
I just feel like there's not enough of the younger generation that really is knowledgeable about that. And that's what our event, Nitro Revival, is all about, is preserving that.
Honor the past, honor the men, the women that made the sport, that helped create it to what it is today.
There's just something about the racing community that just connects so many people. And if we don't do it, I don't know who will. My dad just checks all those boxes. Like, he's just kind of the guy that needed to do it.
I've been real lucky in my life. I happened to, for some reason, to land at the right place and the right time, and and maybe have a skill that somehow was inside me that made this possible.
The movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and we've all seen that movie, right? And it's probably been about 20 years ago where my sisters and I have started likening my dad to George Bailey. But that pivotal scene at the end where the whole community comes together and they're there to support George, and the younger brother shows up and they're toasting George and the impact that he's had on the community. And I just feel like my dad is our George Bailey. So here's to you, Poppy, the richest man in town.
Bring your crew up. You know he deserves it. I want you guys up here listening to him talk. Our last presentation of the night for one of the greatest human beings I've ever known. Take it away, Steve.
Wow, this has been a roller coaster couple of weeks. You know, losing the house in Camarillo was tough. My fiancee Marge had lived in that house for over 50 years, and but we were lucky to get out alive and thankful. And I could spend the next couple hours thanking people for so many elements in my life. And first, I'd like to thank the Lorenzen family and the Automobilia and Rick Lorenzen for this honor, just to be mentioned with the other folks that were inducted here tonight. It's staggering for a young kid that carved out a career hot rodding. That's staggering. I have to thank everyone that supported us after the fire. You can't believe the outpouring of love and concern and support that we've received. There's about 3 people I need to thank. Couldn't make it think a lot of them. I'd like to thank a fellow named Jack Tice for hiring a 21-year-old kid to work at St. Gabriel Drag Strip painting numbers on cars. That's how it all got started. I'd like to thank Harry Snyder, the founder of In-N-Out, who hired me as a manager of Irwindale Raceway at 26 years old. Still hard to believe that he did that. And I'd like to thank Wally Parks for hiring me in 1969 to put in 48 years with the NHRA. I'd also like to thank Wally for hiring Marge Curley. She was my secretary in 1971 and 72. Now my fiancee. We were supposed to be married next week. We will be married, and we had to delay it, but she was my secretary. I'd like to thank my late wife, Gloria, for supporting me in all these years. We had 59 good years together, actually 62 with high school dating. Marge lost her husband from Parkinson's disease, and we were able to reconnect. It's a great story. We're starting our new life, and it seems this fire has actually put us forward in that. I'd like to thank my family. I've got them all here. Not a couple of them missing, but my daughters, my grandkids. It's been a tremendous life. It's been a pleasure to serve the sport. My daughter Cindy and I, we intend on doing what we can to continue on with Nitro Revival. And once again, this honor tonight it's just staggering. And all I could say is thank you.
I can't think of a more fitting way to close the show. Steve will always bounce back. He's loved by many. Marge, welcome to the family. I know it's been a tough couple of weeks. It's going to get better. Seeing that orange 50 Ford up on there was tough because it's not here anymore either. But it's not a person. If anybody has an orange 50 Ford, want to give it to Steve, that would be pretty cool for a wedding gift though, right? I'll give you the address in March.
We're going to close the silent auction right now. I want you guys to feel free once we turn the lights on. We're done with the induction ceremonies, but you're in a room full of legends. It's a good time to mingle. If you want to take pictures with the inductees, I'm sure the museum staff would like to get everybody that was in tonight back up on stage. And on behalf of Lions Automobilia, Tammy, thank you. Thank all the staff, Lana, your crew, all the volunteers here. I've always said when one of your volunteers won Indy and Top Fuel in '74, you got a pretty freaking cool museum, right? So thank everybody for attending. We're going to do this again next year with a couple adjustments to the schedule. I look forward to seeing everybody again. Enjoy.